4, 3, 2.
I know you see, somehow the world will change for me and be so wonderful.
Coming live now from Statesboro High School, Jackson Proctor introducing you to the one and only eletria Biswas.
Hello, I am eletria Biswas of Statesboro High School. We have been submitted a report from the Daily Caller about the anonymous op-ed by the New York Times. Now, the Daily Caller's report is a summary of the report would be the author of the anti-Trump anonymous op-ed published by the New York Times could be a number of different people. The Daily Caller describes some of these people who are suspected of being the op-ed author and shares the reasoning for why these people could be the author with an added perspective of the writer of the Daily Caller article. The author of the Daily Caller article shares his view that the White House has a poor hiring process which caused the op-ed to be written, and his view that the White House should replace them going forward. Then the article explains how Brian Hook is speculated to be the author due to past instances where he went against Trump's wishes, suggesting possible anti-Trump sentiments. Another possible author is Andrea Hall, who is suspected due to her association with the Trump opposition and outspoken critics of Trump. Johnny DeStefano has also been reported as a possible author, despite his friendly relationship with Trump due to his frequent employment of workers from the past Bush administration. The author of the DC article also includes his own personal insight on the op-ed and the Trump administration, detailing his perspective on the hiring and policy management within the government. He specifically shares the sentiment that the personnel in the Trump administration impacts the policy of the administration. The Daily Caller implements various strategies in order to frame this unbiased information to support the conservative political views of the company. For example, the Daily Caller frequently uses bias through word choice and tone in saying she was pro-Putin back when Putin was cool about Andrea Hall. Describing Andrea Hall's political views as changing trends rather than legitimate, thoughtful philosophy simplifies her politics to whatever is in fashion, which brings into question her competency as a politician, adding to their view which Andrea Hall is a hole in the administration. In addition, the Daily Caller uses bias through photos, captions, and camera angles. The only photo that's present in the article is a photo of a magnifying glass or microscope lens held up to the New York Times webpage. This puts the spotlight on the New York Times rather than the anonymous op-ed, putting the New York Times under a microscope or under a magnifying glass, focusing attention on the question of whether the New York Times is a valid news source. By putting a magnifying angle suggests that there's something to look into with the New York Times, as if it needs to be searched and evaluated in order to be valid. In addition, some of the tone in the article is very biased. The article says the anti-Trump globalist left-leaning swamp creatures when referring to the possible mole in the administration. This is inflammatory name-calling language, which paints the op-ed author as in a very negative light, which is showing their conservative tone. The Daily Caller also uses different rhetorical strategies to show their bias and to further their point. An example is their use of metaphor. They repeatedly use the term personnel is policy in the article. This metaphor associates the people in the Trump administration with the policy of the Trump administration, therefore bringing to light
You might want to be just a little louder.
Okay. Another strategy the Daily Caller uses is hyperbole. The Daily Caller author writes, "It is a disaster for President Trump" of the op-ed, when talking about the op-ed. When describing the different view of the Iran deal, which Brian Hook, the hyperbole is referring to Brian Hook, holds compared to Trump, the author claims it's a disaster. This gross exaggeration of normal political differences using dramatic language like disaster is used to evoke worry and alarm within the reader, pulling emotions like unease and fear impacts the article's pathos, which is to establish the political contrast as catastrophic when it really isn't. The perception of the contrast builds the author's idea that Hook must be removed to avoid a disaster, and this idea is a conservative idea to push these people out of the administration just because they disagree with Trump. In addition, the author uses tapinosis, which is rhetorical name calling. When the author says that the administration has been stacked with anti-Trump, globalist, establishment, anti-establishment, left-leaning swamp creatures, that establishes these op-ed authors and anyone who really contradicts Trump as a swamp creature, as an enemy to the state. In addition, the article also uses antonomasia, which is the replacement of a word using a descriptive epithet. In the article, the author writes, "The U.S.'s line on the world's largest state sponsor of terror," referring to Iran. When instead of using Iran, which is a unbiased fact of that is the country, it uses the U.S.'s line on the world's largest state sponsor of terror. This reference to terror and state-sponsored terrorism evokes negative fear, emotion in the reader, and that builds the conservative agenda of establishing Iran and the associated people, such as Brian Hook, with terrorism and catastrophe. In conclusion, the Daily Caller uses various rhetorical strategies such as hyperbole, tapinosis, and metaphor to push their conservative right-wing beliefs on the reader. Beliefs such as the negative perception of various politicians who may disagree with the Trump administration or have authored the anonymous op-ed by the New York Times. The Daily Caller is a very biased news source, as shown through their use of name-calling, omission, and selection, and they also show their bias through their diction and through their titles, the way they speak about politicians who disagree with Trump and really anyone who falls on a more middle or left of the political spectrum. The Daily Caller has been found to be a very biased news source and therefore cannot be trusted to provide factual, unbiased information, and therefore is a less reliable news source.
We're breaking free!
Now reporting live from Statesboro High School, Jackson Proctor. Here, coming at you now, Emily Quinn.
What's up? BBC News published an article titled, "Does Lodestar Guide Us to Anti-Trump Op-Ed Author?" speculating as to whether or not Mike Pence was the author of the anonymous letter sent to the New York Times. The author theorizes Mike Pence's affiliation because of his use of the word lodestar. The article consists of tweets and statements from political officials claiming they have no part in the letter. The article does not present personal opinions, but rather facts and theories based on facts from the New York Times. Bias through selection and omission in the BBC News article. The BBC article rarely uses actual statements from the actual New York Times op-ed letter, but it uses tweets and different statements from some might say as left-affiliated parties. In They actually do use tweets from political figures such as officials in Mike Pence's cabinet. Bias through placement. The placement of a picture of Mike Pence at the beginning associates him with controversy and brings a level of bias, but it also is a conspiracy and rather a theory than factual information or an opinion from BBC's news. The word choice and tone is very skeptical all throughout the article. The article uses words such as outlandish when referring to Mike Pence as the anonymous op-ed, and other words such as speculation are used throughout the article.
I'm ready. That's
Get
gonna
it,
happen.
get the.
No. You keep
We
going.
need a
It'll
video
happen
of
by
you
itself.
sneezing. It'll be funny. The only photos found in the article is one of Mike Pence, and it is a normal photo. He doesn't look strange, or they weren't trying to make him out as vulgar, or even vulgar. The only videos in the article are of Mike Pence saying the word lodestar. The sources for the actual article are the New York Times, tweets from public officials, and BuzzFeed. There are several rhetorical devices used throughout the article. The first one that you see is illusion. Over the picture of Mike Pence, it says "et tu, Pence," as referring to Caesar, as to when Bruce stabbed Caesar and he was not ready. This brings a level of sarcasm to the article, and it's the only bit of sarcasm within the whole article. A denotation is also used to the word lodestar. They give the definition meaning of lodestar, which is a person who leads or guides. The headline itself is a rhetorical question: does lodestar guide us to anti-Trump op-ed author? And in reality, it does not lead us to the actual author of the article, but it gets the reader to think about who it could possibly be. The diction used throughout the letter helps bring the tone. The diction used throughout the article helps bring the tone, which is very skeptical, and the rhetorical devices used within this article leads to a lot of logos, because there's lots of logical explanation for everything mentioned in the article. It presents basic facts and theories rather than actual opinions.
Coming at you live from Statesboro High School, Jackson Proctor. Now, give me some time.
Handing to him.
How you doing, folks? Hope you're having a great morning. Welcome to Statesboro High School. In the article, New York Times publishes bombshell anonymous resistance op-ed. Trump responds furiously by theblaze.com. Author Carlos Garcia talks about reactions given by President Donald Trump after seeing this anonymous letter. In the article, it talks about the New York Times publishing an anonymous letter sent to them by a administrator or other personnel inside the White House. Diction included in the article includes ruthless, bombshell, furiously. This is all words used to downgrade the president by showing that he is not a compassionate person. He's more of a devil, to say. An example of a strategy used by the Blaze includes tapinosis, which is used by never calling Donald Trump by his actual technical name of president. They just use straight Donald Trump. It's downgradation to the little things that really does it in this article. Also, they practice the omission part of the submission and omission by not pointing out who may have written the letter, instead just focusing on bashing the president. By placing their opinions toward the front of the article, they convey their opinion so that maybe you will see it as the same way, and then they put the facts at the back so you can interpret the facts through the opinion filter that they just gave you. Wink. Ready?
Yeah, go.
Okay. I don't know what to do. I have to come up with something every time. Never been put on the spot like this. Cut that.
I don't cut anything.
We are raw in this. That Post Malone.
Focus.
Is that school appropriate?
My chair's squeaky.
I guess I shouldn't have the booty to shake it that much.